Hera has joined Tempo Storm, which is an org that has quite a big history in esports, and he's moving away from his smaller, I don't know if you could call it an organization, it's more of a clan feel for Aftermath. I know a lot of people weren't even clear about what exactly Aftermath is, so he's moving on from Aftermath, which seemed to be more of a clan with his fellow content creators like MBL and Leary and teammates, and he's moving to Tempo Storm. So Tempo Storm, I want to talk about how this is a good move for them first before talking about, obviously for Hera this is an amazing move. It's a proven org in esports. Probably comes with a pay increase, probably comes with more content creation opportunities. But for Tempo Storm, I think this is the more interesting move, is that they're signaling to other players in the esports space that they're moving into Age of Empires right now, going and signing a big name like Hera. You could consider him top 3 in the world right now. Doesn't exactly matter where you put him, but he's up there in the rankings. So they're signing a top player, and that's their entry into the Age of Empires space. So I think a lot of people from the Age of Empires aren't really familiar with what they did in the Counter-Strike scene, but I think that's something that's really interesting from the Tempo Storm perspective. Not many orgs can have as much success as they did. So if we look at some players that they brought up in the Counter-Strike scene, okay? So historically, they signed quite a few names, but let me just go over a few highlights of people that did play for Tempo Storm that they identified as potential talents, went and signed up these people and brought them up in the scene. So first name on that list, Rush, which is a rifler and a very aggressive player for Complexity right now, and Complexity is world number 6 right now, Complexity. So he's still an active player. They brought him up and signed him in 2015. So 5 years ago, they signed this guy, identified his potential. This guy is still playing at the highest levels right now, world number 6. And a highlight from his career, he won $1 million tournament. That's right. He's a major winner with Cloud9. Which ended up being the next team that a couple teams later that he ended up playing for them. So they identified this guy, and he goes on to win $1 million tournament. Amazing move for Tempo Storm. Like, great vision from the management to find players like this. Okay, you're not convinced. Fine. Second guy, Automatic, another major winner who won the major with Rush. Again, $1 million tournament. And he's still playing as well at a very high level. Was carrying basically Cloud9 through like the really bad years where they couldn't get a roster together, like a proper roster together. So he was always a stable talent, always delivering. And he's currently playing for Gen G, a massive org that still exists in the Counter-Strike space, who have a slot in Flashpoint, which is a new league. And they're ranked number 17 in the world, but they're probably a little bit higher up than that. It's a really promising team, a young team there. Gen G was formed last year. So, okay, that's pretty good. Two big stars that they managed to identify early on in their careers that were willing to take the risk on them. Stanislaw, current IGL, so in-game leader in the Counter-Strike space. So basically, like the captain sort of the team for Evil Geniuses, another huge NA org with mega funding. And that team sits currently at world number 2. I mean, right now everyone's online, so it's just not the most accurate ranking, but still, it's impressive to see that these are 3 huge names. These are like, for some orgs, there's once in a lifetime opportunity to sign someone like this, but they had the vision to sign some of these guys really early on back in like 2015 and bring them up through the scene when Counter-Strike and CSGO was just developing. So I think that the management from Tempo Storm, probably one of the better orgs out there in terms of scouting, like who to sign, right? The Viper and Tato and those guys, the former Secret guys, they went with Gamer Legion. So I think Tempo probably could have got some of those names, but they decided to go with Hera, and that's probably a good choice, considering their history of developing talent in NA. They have really good sense for that. And there's a whole bunch of other names on this list that you could go through of former players for Tempo Storm that later on had a really amazing careers in the years after Tempo Storm. And the key thing here about Tempo Storm is that they got in at the right time, right? It's all about timing. The best example is they also brought up some Brazilians, okay, into the Counter-Strike scene when Brazil basically only had one team that was important back in the day, which was Luminosity Gaming. Sort of their rivals in that like tier 2 of NA orgs, where tier 1 would be like Cloud9, Liquid, TSM, NRG, and tier 2 is sort of like Tempo Storm, Luminosity, those orgs. Well, they brought up a team of Brazilians that constantly overperformed and were always a danger to just win a random game out of nowhere. And they backed them. They identified the potential. And later on, that squad, that 5-man squad, they sold it to Immortals Gaming. So Immortals Group is a mega org with tons of VC money. They throw money around like crazy. They pay buyouts. So Tempo, again, really good deal from them to identify a team early on that has a lot of potential, that are overperforming, get in when it's good, and then later on flip them for a crazy return. So I think they have a good sense of when the timing is right to get into a scene, and we can sort of see that from that. It's signaling right now that the timing for Age of Empires is actually pretty good. Now, I think that maybe they don't exactly know why Age of Empires is really good right now, but I think that, like Counter-Strike, Age of Empires is like a proven quantity. It's a time-proven quantity because Counter-Strike has existed for a super long time, going back to 1.6, and Age of Empires as the concept has existed and survived for a super long time. So compared to a lot of new games, for example, that Tempo got into, where they didn't have like a crazy amount of success, or maybe those scenes are sort of dying, they're having lots of. I think that right now the timing is good because it, like I said, AOE is a time-proven quantity that people still watch it even though it's 20 years old, and it's growing now. There's the release of DE, so there's a lot of momentum, and it's sort of the same thing as when I get the same feeling as this is like when CS:GO was released, where they had a concept that was time-proven and they just had a new iteration of it that's coming out, gaining a lot of momentum and turning a lot of heads. So that's a good sign for Tempo in terms of timing. Like I said, I think that the management at Tempo has a good feel for that sort of stuff. If we look at Counter-Strike though, right now, like 5 years later, for example, of when Tempo got out of Counter-Strike, the economics right now are like absolutely insane because once the big orgs that are like the tier 1 orgs come into the scene, they bring a lot of money, they throw a lot of cash around, and it inflates the value of like players and buyouts and stuff like that. So Counter-Strike right now is insane. There's contract prisons where big teams will sign up a bunch of young players and just lock them down on a contract because they know that if someone wants that player, they're gonna have to pay a mega buyout, and it's not a lot of risk for rewards to be allowed to lock down players like that. So it's a little bit screwy right now, and I really hope that doesn't happen in Age of Empires where people get locked down in orgs because of the growth aspect of it. And then you have VC money, and obviously VC money is looking to make a return. So they're looking to sell people and they're looking to flip assets, even more so than like the tier 2 orgs who are just trying to get on and ride the wave of something that's on a growth wave here. They're looking, VC money is looking to make 10x on investments most of the time, so 10 times the investment. So that's right now. It's like Counter-Strike, you get 5 years of sort of, I call it inorganic growth, because people are pumping in tons of money and people are paying like $1 million buyouts for players. So that's a little bit screwy right now. And then what happens, I think, to Tempo Storm and orgs like that is that they get priced out of their teams. Like, they had a League of Legends team and then they dissolved it or whatever. And then they have Counter-Strike where they sort of get, they get an amazing offer from Immortals Group. So they get priced out sort of by getting an offer that they can't refuse. They can't refuse to sell these players. So, that's how they make money, but at the same time, it could be a sign of things to come down the road. Of bigger orgs now are going to start turning their heads, and you take on the same side, this basically like almost the same week that Hera put together this Tempo deal, you have the secret guys, like I mentioned, going with Gamer Legion. So now that the tier 2 orgs are starting to invest into Age of Empires, I think that bigger orgs are going to start sniffing it out and starting to look at it. You have Red Bull too, which is a huge name, more so I would consider than Tempo and Gamer Legion, running tournaments. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year we see a big TO, maybe a DreamHack or someone, put together a team, an event for Age of Empires. DreamHack is getting priced out of other, like I was saying, the Counter-Strike space right now. And they used to run StarCraft tournaments, which were really fun to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a TO that looks at Age of Empires and starts to run some tournaments, especially because it's still Corona, and probably for the next year, the virus is still going to be messing up all the schedules. So if the Corona is still there 1 year from now, everything's online. I don't see why TOs who are sort of looking for something to break into, TOs being tournament organizers, I don't see why they wouldn't take a look at Age of Empires if you have other big names and, again, tier 2 orgs that are starting to invest into it. So I think that this move, I won't go on about it. It's really good for Hera, obviously, personally, but the important thing is I think that it's a really big sign of growth to come for the AOE scene. And I hope that doesn't happen like Counter Strike, where it grows too fast and there's too much money, and then you get people getting locked out of like $1 million buyouts and stuff like that. One thing that's different though is that Counter Strike is a team sport, so you need to actually put together a team of 5 players, whereas Age of Empires is more like tennis or golf, where you sponsor people more individually and the results are more individual. So I think that is something that can save us from these contract buyouts, and keep the economics a little bit more under control, where you can't lock down a bunch of players and keep them from moving around. However, I think that team tournaments are really interesting. I think that's a little bit unexplored, and I don't think we've had a big team team RTS esport that has the same visibility as Age of Empires. But I honestly I enjoy watching it. Like, I know people, like, maybe the pro players don't take it as seriously as 1v1, but I think it's really interesting. I love to watch it. I think that it adds a whole new dimension to the game, and it's not broken like StarCraft team games are completely broken, and it's not interesting to watch. But I think that for example, the Empire Wars duo tournament was really interesting to watch and fun, and keeps that same lightness to the broadcasts of Age of Empires. So maybe if we see team things, and that'll bring another growth aspect to it, and then we can get to that situation where orgs will want to lock down players and flip assets. But I think that for now, the fact that it's a 1v1 focused esport will save us from that, and basically it's very positive. So congrats to Hera, and welcome to Tempo Storm to the scene.